Hi, my name is Rachel and welcome to a video. This is going to be an interesting video. I've never done anything like this and I will never do anything like this again. In December of 2019, I read a book called Unpregnant by Jenny Hendricks and Ted Kaplan, and it was terrible. I decided to make a video review of the book. However, I also felt that there was so much information that was lacking in this book that needed to be addressed, especially because this book is targeted at young people and I feel that they are the people that need to know this information the most. Although all of us could benefit from learning. One of the things that was mentioned in the book but then never talked about again was crisis pregnancy centers. And I decided to do a little bit of an in-depth review on crisis pregnancy centers. Unfortunately, it turned out, I mean, you can see how long this video is. It turned out to be like documentary long. What have I done? So, brief overview of what this video is going to be. Part 1 is me going over the book Unpregnant, giving it a review, and talking about why I think it was awful. Part 2 is me giving a little bit of legal and historical information about abortion in the context of just the United States, as well as a brief overview of what crisis pregnancy centers are and why they are problematic. Part 3 is me going over the websites of local CPCs in my area. I talk about what is on their website and why it is medically inaccurate and why that is unethical. Part 4 is going to be me talking about the legality of abortion, why it should remain legal. Obviously, if you can't already tell, I am pro-choice. However, I will not be talking about it from an ethical standpoint as far as when does life begin, or even giving the whole bodily autonomy argument. I don't do that because in the end, there is one reason why I believe abortion should be legalized, and I will talk about that at the end. I will put timestamps down below for all the different parts of this video, so if you want to just skip around and watch one part or two parts or whatever, you can do that. If you've been following me on Twitter, you know that I worked very hard on this. I'm filming this at the end, actually, like this is me being basically done with this video, and I worked so freaking hard on this. So if you've been with me through this process, I really appreciate you, and thank you for watching. First, I want to talk about this book and why I feel it had a great idea and completely failed on execution and does not at all help the reproductive rights movement. So Unpregnant is about a girl named Veronica who is in high school. Veronica finds out that she is pregnant. Veronica has friends and family who are very conservative Christian. She has a boyfriend who loves her, but she doesn't have any long-term plans with him. And she has been accepted to go to Brown. She is in her senior year of high school and she is planning to go to Brown in the fall. After she finds out that she's pregnant, she decides that she wants to get an abortion, and she calls a abortion clinic in her state near her, and they say, we cannot provide you with one because you are under the age of 18, you will need parental consent. And she, having fundamentalist Christian parents, knows that she will not get their consent. So she decides to take up the advice of this person on the phone at the clinic and said the next closest place to us is in a different state. It's 994 miles away in Albuquerque, New Mexico. She lives in Missouri. And there you will be able to get an abortion same day without having to have parental consent. So Veronica says, okay, I will have my boyfriend Kevin drive me. My parents think that I will be away with my friends for the weekend studying at her friend's cabin. So she says, okay, well, I will just have Kevin drive me. Well, it turns out that Kevin got her pregnant on purpose, and so he does not want to take her, and he actually proposes. So she is livid. She takes the ring that he proposes with. She goes and finds Bailey, and they pawn the ring, and then they use the money to go on this hangover-esque road trip together all the way to the abortion clinic in Albuquerque, and shenanigans ensue. So we start out with Veronica at school taking a pregnancy test that she stole from her sister. And the test, of course, falls under the door in the bathroom, and our other main character, Bailey, picks it up and sniffs it. this book just had a lot of issues. Bailey and Veronica were friends back in 7th grade, but they are no longer friends. Bailey is seen as very weird by most of the population at their high school. She doesn't seem to have any friends, and she barks at people. Yeah, so she's like a weird girl. So I'm going to talk about the characters. I don't understand most of the characters. So the main two, Veronica and Bailey, I felt were very cookie cutter, very two-dimensional, just not very well done. They didn't really have personalities explored, and they just were not very well written characters. There were many side characters, and they all felt much the same. However, there was one that I don't understand. This was a book, I think, that was intended from the start to be a movie, and as you can see here, it says soon to be a movie. And apparently it's getting a sequel too. The movie rights had been sold to this, I think, before the book had even been published. This was written by people who had planned to make this a movie, I think, and I believe that, okay, so Ted Kaplan worked on both Deadpool films, and Jenny Hendricks, she worked on How I Met Your Mother. And I used to like How I Met Your Mother, but now I just don't find it funny, and I didn't find this book funny either. The characters, while most of them being cookie cutter, there was one that was both really religious and also really not religious. So with fundamentalist Christians, you typically find that if they are vehemently anti-abortion, they are also vehemently anti-LGBTQ plus and other things. So at one point in the story, we meet a stripper named Sapphire, and she picks up the girls from the strip club that she works at after giving Bailey a lap dance. Bailey is a lesbian, by the way. And she gives Bailey her first kiss, then takes the girls home, and it turns out that she's actually a fundamentalist Christian who lives with her open relationship dude, who they don't want to label it, but she also wants to take Veronica to a crisis pregnancy center. And she's shaming her and telling her, Jesus wants you to keep your baby, and telling her she's going to hell. This is a complete juxtaposition. It doesn't make sense. Like, these are two entirely different people smashed into one character for the sake of comedy. It doesn't make sense. And her boyfriend, not boyfriend, that she lives with is like a pothead who sells pot on his cousin's prescription and has a bunch of ferrets, but then is also a fundamentalist Christian who doesn't want her to have an abortion. Like, all these things are just mashed together, and it doesn't make sense. So Veronica and Bailey were basically kidnapped by this woman and her boyfriend, or not boyfriend, who are just so many things mashed into one that they don't make sense. But it doesn't have to make sense because it's a comedy. And this leads me to another issue I have with this book, is that ideas that should have been handled with care and nuance and emotional sensitivity were not at all. Topics that I wrote down that I think that it could have done better on, or it brought up and then never brought up again, even though it's a necessary conversation that we need to have about these things, they just went out the window. So the first one is obviously abortion. There were a lot of jokes made, but not a whole lot of good, substantial material in this book about why it needed to be legal for her to go in her own state and get this abortion. So another thing that was not handled with care was legislation on abortion, because what happens when abortion is outlawed in this way, where it makes parental consent necessary, is that girls will go to other states to get abortions if they don't just try awful things that are unsafe at home, which I will talk about that all later. And that whole concept was not discussed, at least not productively. Another thing I didn't feel like was handled with care was, even though this book touts itself to be about female friendship ultimately, I feel like their friendship was pretty surface level. Like, I don't know what they have in common other than the road trip that they took to go get Veronica an abortion. Like, they didn't really talk about anything. They just made jokes the whole time, kind of got mad at each other, and Veronica had these like very surface level moments of, wow, Bailey is so free and I've never, done that. I've never been able to be myself because I'm always just with Kevin or with my church family, or I'm doing schoolwork and I've never allowed myself to be a kid. And then suddenly she's with Bailey and now she's like free, but it didn't actually come out that way. Like it didn't come, it's a whole lot of telling rather than showing me that this is happening. Like there was no instances in which I felt that that was actually happening. So I did not feel like the concept of female friendships and their portrayal in media was handled well. Another thing I did not feel like was handled well was the portrayal of crisis pregnancy centers and how much they shape our communities now, because there are thousands of them. There are more of them than there are abortion clinics. And they are being touted by religious individuals as an alternative to Planned Parenthood, even though crisis pregnancy centers, CPCs, are not medical clinics. They are not at all, whereas centers such as Planned Parenthood are. They provide more than just abortions. They provide cancer screenings, pap smears, STD and STI testing, whereas CPCs are given government money to lie and manipulate women into giving them one choice: carry your pregnancy to term, period. They mention in the book lies that CPCs normally tout to people. Her boyfriend Kevin talks to Sapphire the stripper, and Sapphire tells him if she has an abortion, she's going to be infertile for the rest of her life. She's going to be at a higher chance of getting breast cancer. These are lies that CPCs typically tell people, even just on their website or in person when you get counseling from them. They were in this book mentioned, but then they weren't ever talked about again. You're just forced to kind of like laugh it off, but we need to talk about it. Like, somebody reading this book might not know that that's a common misconception. I mean, I'm afraid that people are going to read this book and think, oh, so can you get a higher chance of breast cancer if you have an abortion? The answer is no, by the way. It's no. You can't. Science says so. Another thing I did not like about this book was the dialogue. I'm going to read you an excerpt from page 6. At this point, Bailey is trying to figure out who is on the other side of the bathroom stall, who dropped their pregnancy test, who's the person that's pregnant, because she doesn't know it's Veronica. Chloe McCourt, Bailey ventured. I sat on the toilet in stony silence. No, Calvin just broke up with her. No way she landed another dude after she burned his football uniform in the quad. I don't care how big her titties are. This is a tricky one. Ella Tran, she's dumb enough to confuse her Altoids with birth control. I just feel like that's girl hate, and I don't like it. And I don't really feel like that's how teenagers talk, and if they do, they shouldn't. And we shouldn't, like, commend it or make it seem like it's a joke. Then she says, well, there's always longtime subscriber to Penis of the Month Club, Olivia Bloom. I feel like that's kind of slut-shaming, and that sucks. Like, this is just not how girls should talk about each other. It's not nice. It's not kind. We should be building each other up. And then page 8, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but she basically calls Veronica a cliche for being a prom queen, valedictorian, Christian pregnancy is pretty damn cliche for you. Like, this is not how teenagers talk. They just don't talk like this. At least not where I went to high school, but I graduated like 10 years ago, so I don't know. And then she calls her a nerd for saying that she took AP classes more than another student, and that she did charity work, and that's why she's up for valedictorian. She calls her a nerd. Like, there was a girl in my school who got into, I want to say Harvard, and honestly, I don't know anybody that called her a nerd. Everybody I knew was just kind of in awe. And then another thing that I did not like in the dialogue was the constant jokes about pregnancy, and this plays into the whole thing of this was written more to be a comedy movie rather than a book taking on a topic that is difficult to talk about, but it is necessary to talk about. Her and Bailey are just starting their road trip, and Bailey starts referring to herself as Veronica's abortion friend, and she starts to sing a song she made up that says, abortion friend, wouldn't have to do this if you'd let him stick it in your end. We spend a lot of time on those jokes, and they're not fucking funny. They're just not. And it's fine if you like wanted to write a comedy book, but I just don't think that this is appropriate for teenagers, and it's marketed for young adults, because the fact is that this is something that teenagers need to talk about. Teenagers need to be taught about comprehensive sex education, consent, and actual facts about abortion. They just do, because the fact is, when we give them agency, when we tell them the truth, the scientific truth, they can make better decisions. When we teach abstinence to teenagers, they are more likely to become teen parents. That is just a statistical likelihood. Towards the end of the book, they do get to the clinic where she has an appointment to have the abortion, and there are protesters outside. And this is a common thing. There's actually a place not too far from me. It is the only clinic that provides abortions in a local county, and it has protesters outside. In fact, there are a lot of protesters coming up soon because they're going to be doing that whole 40 days for life thing. If you don't know, Google it. And they're going to be protesting outside, even though protesting doesn't lower abortion rates. So I gave this book 2 out of 5 stars because I didn't like the characters, I didn't like the dialogue, and I feel like it was trying to make abortion funny, which I don't like. And instead of tackling the incredibly difficult but necessary subject of abortion and adding a little bit of humor along the way, appropriate humor, it just fucking sucked. It just was not good. Like, it wasn't funny. The characters didn't seem real to me. A good book, you close the book and you still feel like these characters are out there somewhere existing outside of this book. And that's not what they feel like. This feels like these characters exist in a movie somewhere that's going to be coming out. And they do. And I'm sure the movie will do well. I mean, it's like The Hangover, but with abortion, and the Hangover movies do really well, but this book did not do abortion very well. And I wish it did, because it's a really important subject to tackle. So that's all I have to say about Unpregnant. I'm going to switch over to the part of the video where I will be talking about CPCs and what the issues are with them, what I wish they would do instead, and then I will be talking about abortion and its legality and whether or not it should be legal. So in order for me to talk about CPCs, first I need to talk a little bit about abortion law in the United States. In 1973, the Roe v. Wade decision was made. The Supreme Court said that abortion was a fundamental right, and the decision and the language used in the decision by the Supreme Court made it so that states were not allowed to restrict abortion or prevent a pregnant person from seeking out an abortion in the first trimester. Roe v. Wade was really about whether or not states were allowed to write their own abortion laws. The decision said that in the second trimester, states could restrict abortion, but only with the intent of furthering a woman's health. They were not permitted to simply enact restrictions to discourage or deter someone from getting an abortion. In the third trimester, states could ban abortion past the point of viability, but only if there was a written exception for the woman's health provided. In 1989, 4 Supreme Court justices were considering overturning Roe v. Wade during the case of Webster v. Reproductive Health Services. This emboldened anti-abortion advocates, and Pennsylvania's Abortion Control Act directly challenged the Roe v. Wade decision. This legislation included a mandate called informed consent. This mandate said that a woman seeking an abortion had to receive certain information from the state, certain state-mandated information from her abortion provider. Informed consent laws are still a thing. They are on the books in several states, including my own state of Florida. In 1992, the Pennsylvania Abortion Control Act had been challenged all the way up to the Supreme Court. This case became known as Planned Parenthood versus Casey. When we talk about the history of abortion and the law of abortion within the United States, it's just as important to know about Planned Parenthood versus Casey as it is to know about Roe versus Wade, because Planned Parenthood versus Casey really changed the landscape for abortion law. The hope from anti-abortion advocates was that this Planned Parenthood versus Casey would cause those 4 Supreme Court justices to overturn Roe versus Wade, because they were thinking about overturning it. This ruling was decided by a 5-4 decision. Neither side won. There was a joint decision that crafted a middle position. This decision upheld Roe versus Wade, the decision that was made there, but it changed the standard by which abortion laws would be judged. This decision rejected the trimester framework that Roe had implemented, which I described earlier, and established the undue burden standard instead. The undue burden standard is a law regarding abortion would be considered invalid if it placed substantial obstacles in the path of a pregnant person seeking an abortion. This change in standard completely changed abortion law and abortion politics. Anti-choice advocates took advantage of the lack of clear description on what undue burden meant. So they started passing bills trying to determine just how much they could push the standard and just how much they could limit abortion without being told, no, you're restricting a woman's constitutional right to get an abortion. Anti-abortion legislators work with pro-life lawyer groups such as the AUL to write laws that work within the confines of the undue burden standard. One of the first examples of this after Planned Parenthood versus Casey was the AUL's work in the state of Mississippi with Senator Nunley. They created an informed consent law that had even more mandates in it than the Pennsylvania Abortion Control Act. The legislation included a face-to-face meeting between the doctor and the patient where a booklet of colored pictures of fetal development and requiring the doctor to point out to the patient, and this is quoting Senator Nunley, this is where your child fits into the spectrum of pictures, and he's further quoted as saying, the patients had to be informed of the risk and dangers associated with the abortion procedure. However, it's considered to be a low-risk procedure. Since Casey, Mississippi has continued to enact laws that restrict abortion. Because of the ambiguous wording undue burden that was not clearly defined, states have been able to chip away at the right to an abortion. To quote pro-choice advocate, and also she is the former director of the Jackson Women's Health Organization, Betty Thompson, the law will still be on the books, but no one will be able to access the service. She's also quoted as saying, women are having the same obstacles placed before them as they did before Roe versus Wade. Some states' informed consent laws require a woman to come into the clinic, see a doctor, and then wait a 24 to 48 hour waiting period before actually having the procedure done. In these face-to-face meetings, sometimes they are mandated to be given state-issued information. These 24 to 48 hour waiting periods require the woman to come into the clinic more than once, which doesn't sound bad until you think further into it. Currently, 6 or 7 states only have one abortion clinic left. This means that for women seeking an abortion, there's an issue for distance in 6 or 7 different states. And 90% of counties throughout the US have no abortion clinic. This means a huge amount of women are traveling just to have abortions. And these waiting periods mean taking more than one day off work, securing childcare for both days, securing travel for both days, and securing funding, all just to get abortion care. This means that there are women out there who are essentially forced into continuing pregnancies that they don't want to have, all because they were barred by lack of access to funds, transportation, childcare, or could not get days off work. There are now fewer abortion clinics in the United States than at any time since Roe versus Wade was decided in 1973. You would think there would be more, but that's just not how it is. Abortion has actually been on the decline. Sadly, this lack of clinics and this lack of abortion providers affects rural women the most. Along with legislation such as informed consent rules, there is another tactic that anti-abortion advocates use, and that is called TRAP laws, which stands for Targeted Restrictions on Abortion Providers. Anti-abortion advocates say that these are put into place to protect women's health, but there's no evidence showing that they actually do that. It sounds good in theory, but women's health is not being protected by TRAP laws. They're mostly completely unnecessary to abortion procedures. Some states have TRAP laws that go way beyond what is necessary to ensure safety of the patient. An example of this is requiring an abortion providing clinic to be stocked with medications that they end up never using. Then they have to throw away these medications because they expire, only to buy more of them because it is mandated that they have them on stock even though they never use them. Not only is this wasteful and unnecessary, it's not protecting women's health at all. Another example is to require hospital admitting privileges. This, again, sounds good in theory, but is it actually necessary? Both the American Medical Association and the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists have said there is simply no medical basis for requiring hospital admitting privileges on abortion providers. A hospital will see you either way, and abortion is a safe procedure. Another example is requiring an abortion providing clinic to become an ambulatory surgical center. Despite the fact that less than 1% of patients having abortions at these clinics require hospitalization. The purpose of these laws is not to protect women's health. They are not made in the interest of protecting women's health. They are made in the interest of closing down abortion clinics, and it's working. Since 2010, state legislation has created over 250 laws that have created restrictions on abortion providing clinics and their doctors. The passing of HB 2 in Texas included restrictions such as making it mandatory for every single abortion, even those done using the abortion pill, as in like literally a pill, it's called mifepristone, to be done in an ambulatory surgical center, and this bill caused the state of Texas to go from 44 abortion providing clinics to 6. And if they were really interested in protecting women's health, then they should probably know that studies show that when abortion clinics close, more women attempt to terminate their own pregnancies. One economist found that Google searches for self-induced abortion also spike, and when women try to perform abortions without medical professionals, many of them have serious complications or die, according to reports from the World Health Organization. In 2015, in the United States, there were about 119,000 searches for the exact phrase, "how to have a miscarriage." There were also searches for other variants, such as how to self-abort, and for particular methods. Overall, there were more than 700,000 Google searches looking into self-induced abortions in 2015. According to anti-abortion advocates, the solution for helping pregnant women is funding CPCs. CPC stands for Crisis Pregnancy Center. They also go by the term Pregnancy Resource Center or Pregnancy Help Center. CPCs are anti-abortion establishments that typically through state and federal funding, the federal funding normally coming from money set aside for abstinence teaching, provide women with no cost to them free pregnancy tests and free ultrasounds. One near me, which is called Foundations of Life, lists their services. We offer information and support for the following: free pregnancy testing, free limited ultrasound, pregnancy symptoms and stages, education and support groups, birth options, prenatal care, maternity and infant supplies, abortion alternatives, post-abortive services. And yeah, that all sounds good in theory. I mean, who doesn't want free stuff for pregnant people? And there's other things that these CPCs offer that are actually great. They offer pregnancy and birth classes, parenting classes, referrals to community resources, maternity clothes, baby clothes, and even sometimes things like strollers. They're not mandated to have all of that. Different ones offer different things. However, the issue with these places is that their primary focus is their anti-abortion agenda. They exist to actively mislead. This has been detailed by many, including in the 2006 congressional report done by Representative Henry Waxman of California. This report detailed CPC's deceptive marketing tactics and their repeatedly giving misleading health information. This investigation found that 87% of CPCs that were surveyed provided inaccurate or misleading medical information. This includes, but is not limited to, the following: providing misleading info about a link between abortion and breast cancer, despite multiple studies disproving this, and the medical consensus being that abortion does not cause breast cancer. 2, provide false and misleading info about the effect of abortion on future fertility, despite consensus being that safe abortion in the first trimester does not pose an increased risk for future fertility. 3, providing false and misleading information regarding the mental health effects of abortion, despite all well-conducted relative studies showing that psychological stress after abortion is no different than psychological stress after birth. They assert the existence of a condition that has no evidence in medical literature that it actually exists, called post-abortive stress syndrome, characterized as severe long-term emotional harm caused by abortion, despite the AMA and the APA not recognizing the existence of such a syndrome. The APA actually convened an expert panel on the subject to review all relevant data, and having subsequently said, the best studies available suggest that severe negative reactions are rare. Women feel a range of emotions after having a baby, after having an abortion, or after having a miscarriage. Sometimes within this range of emotions, grief is included. But there's no such thing as post-abortion stress syndrome. It simply does not exist. In fact, research suggests that even when they're asked years later, 95% of women do not regret their abortions. The fourth and final thing that these CPCs will tout is something that really bothers me personally. They claim that if abortion is done via the abortion pill, RU486, also known as mifepristone, that it can be reversed if you don't take the second pill in the protocol, misoprostol. They actually tell women, you can change your mind if you've only taken the first pill. It's reversible. Call this number. In fact, every single CPC in my area that I looked at has this on their website. This idea is originally based on a poorly designed study only involving 6 patients, and it was done by an anti-abortion family health doctor named George Delgado. In a paper published in 2012, he claimed that out of 6 patients, there were only 6 patients in the study, side note. Out of 6 patients who took mifepristone and did not continue to take the misoprostol, which is the second pill in the abortion pill regimen, 4 of the patients were able to continue on with their pregnancies after receiving progesterone injections. A actually well-designed study trying to repeat this process so that we can find out whether or not it actually is a viable medical protocol and not just tell women, go ahead and try this experimental thing that worked on 4 people, was being done at UC Davis, but they had to stop. But they had to stop the study because last year, when the study was being conducted, due to safety concerns, after 3 patients were rushed to the hospital with severe bleeding. In a 2017 statement, the American Congress of Obstetrics and Gynecologists said that Delgado's paper, only involving a small handful of patients, was not scientific evidence that progesterone resulted in the continuation of those pregnancies. They also firmly stated that claims regarding abortion reversal treatment are not based on science and do not meet clinical standards. Despite this, crisis pregnancy centers, even ones around me, all of the ones around me seemingly, tout this as a not just experimental thing, but something that actually works and something that you should think about if you change your mind. This is dangerous. Giving women inaccurate and misleading medical information is not the only unethical thing that CPCs do. They tend to name their establishments things that are similar to actual medical clinics. They tend to open up shop in the vicinity of or directly next to things like hospitals or even actual abortion clinics. They create websites that use jargon and pictures that make it look like an actual medical establishment. They'll use pictures of a doctor in a lab coat, a nurse in scrubs, a stethoscope, lab equipment, things like that to make it look like an actual medical clinic. CPCs have even gone so far as to purchase keyword advertising on Google. They pay to insert links to their centers as the top results on Google based on keyword searches for things involving abortion. According to research from NARAL, using Google to find abortion clinics led users to a CPC about 79% of the time. This creates confusion since, again, CPCs are typically named things that sound like actual medical clinics. This is all done in a deliberate attempt to confuse pregnant people. This is a quote from Abby Johnson, who is a staunch pro-life advocate at a Heartbeat International conference. And Heartbeat International, if you don't know, is a CPC umbrella organization. This was at the Heartbeat International conference in March of 2012. Abby said, "We want to appear neutral on the outside. The best call, the best client you'll get is one that thinks they are walking into an abortion clinic, okay? Those are the best clients that could ever walk in your door or call your center. The ones that think you provide abortions." This is their tactic. This is why they want you to come in and get a free pregnancy test and a free ultrasound and some diapers and some maternity clothes and maybe even a stroller. They're giving you free stuff because you're paying for it and having to listen to inaccurate medical information. This is putting ideology, religious ideology most of the time, in front of women's health, which is unethical. The American Medical Association Journal of Ethics actually did a really insightful entry, which is on their website, and I will link it down below. In it, they say their mission is to prevent abortions by persuading women that adoption or parenting is a better option. They strive to give the impression that they are medical centers offering legitimate medical services and advice. Yet, they are exempt from regulatory, licensure, and credentialing oversight that apply to healthcare facilities. Because the religious ideology of these centers' owners and employees takes priority over the health and well-being of the women seeking care at these centers, women do not receive comprehensive, accurate, evidence-based clinical information about all options. Although crisis pregnancy centers enjoy First Amendment right protections, their propagation of misinformation should be regarded as an ethical violation that undermines women's health. And the problem here is that they believe that the ends justify the means. It's okay to lie to women because we want them to keep their pregnancies, because what's important to them is that no fetus is terminated. So I set out to talk to some of the crisis pregnancy centers in my area, and I found basically everything in here. I also tried to find out what the licensing is for CPCs, because I did call one and they said, yes, we are licensed, when I asked, are you a licensed medical facility? So I went on this entire journey of attempting to figure out what exactly that means through HB 41, which was enacted in 2018 by Governor Rick Scott of Florida. Two different entities working in conjunction with the Florida Department of Health have a contract that they are the overseers of CPCs. These two entities are FPSSP and FPCN. Unfortunately, you will see in this video that I cannot find anything that points to FPSSP or FPCN being more than an umbrella organization similar to Heartbeat International or CareNet, meaning that there really is no oversight of CPCs in my home state of Florida, which is upsetting because they are pretending to provide medical care, even some of them saying we provide wellness exams, we provide prenatal care, but that's not actually true. And it seems that nobody is really oversighting any of this. So the layperson goes onto these websites and believes that they are medical facilities giving accurate medical information, but they're not. But they are protected by the law. On top of that, they are not required to be affiliated under HB 41 with FPSSP and FPCN. You can open a crisis pregnancy center and not be in contract with them. So who's really looking out for pregnant women in Florida? It seems nobody. And on top of this, taxpayers pay for it. That bill, HB 41, under Rick Scott, it made crisis pregnancy centers permanently funded by the state. In all of this that I have found, I can't help but feel that this is all very futile. It's upsetting because I don't feel like anybody's really giving a crap that Florida women are being lied to. They don't care about pregnant women. And yeah, I could report all these to the Florida Department of Health, and I will, but I don't feel like anything's going to get done about it. But I can't just give up because I feel like it's futile. I still have to do the right thing. I'm not going to lie to you, this entire process has been exhausting. So at this point, I'm going to lead you into the next part of this video, which is me actually looking at CPC websites and getting a little bit more information on their establishments. And thanks for staying with me so far. So on to the next part.
The abortion procedure itself, if she chooses to go that way, is that safe? Is there a lot of risk behind it?
We will give her information on, depending on how far along, what kind of procedure the abortion would be. Abortion, no matter how you slice it, is the ending of a life. So that's something that she needs to understand, and that she will, and based on that, she'll make her decision. We'll explain to her what kind of procedure, depending on how far along she is, what kind of procedure she will be looking at if that's her choice. So in this way, she does have an informed decision.
I know there's like a pill, right? Not Plan B, but like an actual abortion pill, so that's not something that you guys dispense, correct?
No, it's not.
Okay, and but is there a lot of risk for that?
There is risk for it, because, that's something you do it on your own without a doctor's supervision. There could be heavy bleeding, a lot of cramping, a lot of pain. There is, there is the risk that, that something could go wrong because you're not being followed by a doctor or something that,
Oh, okay. And then I saw something about if she did decide to have abortion, that there's a possibility of depression. Is that just as common as?
There is psychological, emotional, spiritual, and physical effects to an abortion. Definitely. I speak to women that are post-abortive all day long, and they all remember the day, their due date. They're walking wounded. Because when you do have an abortion, you realize what you did. You feel the emptiness. It's not a decision that can be taken lightly. You have to know all the consequences of it before you make that decision. It is a decision that when you make that decision, you have, you didn't kill, when you're pregnant, you're not carrying a rock or a piece of vegetable, you're carrying a baby. This is your child, your DNA, it's got your DNA, it's got a beating heart starting at 18 days. So,
Wow, 18 days.
To know all of that, and if that's still the decision that she wants to go into, she needs to make that decision with open eyes.
Right.
But there is emotional risk. There is what I have seen in the 10 years I've been doing this. The consequences. Women usually after they have an abortion, they look for the replacement baby.
Oh, like they want to get pregnant again?
Yeah, they'll get pregnant again, absolutely. A lot of them, they go into this mode of wanting to punish themselves by doing risky behavior, by going into drugs or alcohol. Then, if they're in a relationship, it depends on how the father of the baby acts, so they're very, it becomes a very, very difficult situation. That's what I see. If she's farther along than 10, 12 weeks, even as young as 5 weeks, there is already an attachment, a chemical attachment to the baby, because hormones are going back and forth between mother and child. So, the attachment is already there. So when she does have an abortion, she will feel the loss.
Right.
And that's only natural.
I know that there's the risk of postpartum depression if she does carry to term. Is that more of a risk than if she were to have an abortion, or is she less likely to? I just don't want her to be depressed. So is she less likely to be depressed if she carries to term then?
No, not really. Postpartum depression is something that happens. It just happens. It's not. There is nothing that determines. You have to watch the mom, make sure that she's not, sad. Sometimes there's sadness after delivering a baby. You have to make sure that sadness doesn't turn into depression. When it comes to depression, then that's a chemical thing, and she needs medical care. She needs to see a doctor. Being a little sad and overwhelmed after you have a baby, that's normal, but that goes away quickly. That's normal.
But it's different than the depression she would have if she were to abort then?
Oh, absolutely. The psychological effects of an abortion, you know in your heart that you did something against your child, that you had a child and now you don't.
Right.
You are my personal belief is that, the abortion does not stop you from being a mother. It just makes you the mother of the baby. Because, when you get pregnant, you know you're pregnant. You already, somehow you attach yourself to the baby the same way that the baby attaches itself to you. So
We're going to look over a few different CPCs websites, and we're going to talk about why they're problematic, why they are designed the way that they are. So the one that we're going to go over today is Options for Women, which is a crisis pregnancy center that is located in Polk County, Florida. Okay, so now we are on the Options for Women website. So I'm going to show you. So the first thing that comes up for me is it says that there is pregnancy testing. There is a photo of somebody who it looks like they're kind of wearing scrubs doing an ultrasound, and then it also says STI testing. What I'm looking for off the bat is, are they using jargon, photos, or icons that will lead the person who's on this website to believe that they are a actual medical clinic, like a licensed medical clinic that provides medical care, because there is a difference between a CPC and an actual medical clinic. So you can see that they have a picture with a stethoscope, and it says underneath it, Options for Women Pregnancy Health Clinic, helping you make an informed choice. Am I really pregnant? How far along am I? And another thing I look for right off the bat is, do they have something on the front of their website that says, we do not perform or refer for abortions, and are you a licensed medical clinic or not? I think they are required by the state of Florida to say on their website that they do not provide or refer for abortions. Anyways, okay, so I did go over this website already. So it does say we do not perform or refer for abortions, which that's good. They don't. So under their website menu, it has options, and your 3 different options are abortion, adoption, and parenting. So the next thing that we're going to look at is the differences between what they say when they are talking about abortion and what they say when they are talking about parenting. Because if you're choosing to be a parent and you are a pregnant woman or pregnant person coming to this website, then you are obviously going to need medical help either way. So how are they talking about this in regards to abortion versus in regards to pregnancy and then parenting? Because pregnancy does come with risks. It's much riskier to be pregnant and go to term than it is to have an abortion. So if they're going to talk about risks and side effects of abortion, then they should also list the risks and side effects of being pregnant and going to term. Otherwise, they are putting ideology before women's health, because listing risks and side effects is not really their main goal. Informing women of these things is not their main goal, but to sway a woman to do one over the other is. Because if you're not going to list the risks and side effects of pregnancy, which most of them are similar to abortion, such as bleeding and possible damage to your organs, etc., even though these risks are low, they list them. So if you're worried about women's health, you should let them know that these risks also come along in pregnancy as well. Otherwise, it looks like your ideology comes first. So we're going to take a look at that. We're also going to take a look at adoption, their adoption part of their website, because many CPCs don't list the fact that, yeah, you can want to put your baby up for adoption, but if your partner that you're with is not interested in doing that, then that person can say no, and then you can't put your baby up for adoption unless you get a lawyer, go to court, have their parental rights terminated. So that needs to be listed in the interest of being truthful to women about what they're in for should they choose that option. And that's really the overall thing, the overall goal that I'm looking for is how truthful are they being. Now, the one thing that will put them on my shit list, any CPC, is if they talk about reversing an abortion, which is when they say, oh, if you've already taken the first pill in a medication abortion, which is mifepristone, I think is the way you pronounce it, which basically cuts off life support as it doesn't allow progesterone to go to the fetus. If you don't take the next pill and you dose up with a whole bunch of progesterone, you can stop the abortion and you can reverse it if you change your mind, which is not true. At least it's not medically proven to be true. There's not enough scientific evidence. If they say that on this website, then this place is automatically like on my shit list, because that's not okay. You don't give women that inaccurate, scientifically not accepted information, even though laws are based off of it, but that's a whole different issue. Okay, so we're gonna look at their website. So first we're going to go to their abortion section. So it says basically just, if you're facing an unplanned pregnancy, we're pro-women and we will get you the answers you need to make the best decision for you. Our staff will provide you with facts about abortion, pregnancy, and adoption, as well as provide important medical testing you need, all free of charge. Now, I don't love the the phrase, as well as provide the important medical testing you need, because that's very ambiguous. It sounds like they're saying that they can do way more than they can do, because during pregnancy there's a lot of tests that you have to get done. One that comes to mind that friggin' sucks is the test for gestational diabetes, and they can't do that. They're not a medical clinic, they're not an OBGYN, they don't provide any sort of care, including prenatal care, so they can't do that. So using that kind of language, I don't think that that's accurate, I don't think that that's helpful to women, and I don't think that's being truthful to women. It says, if you think you may be pregnant, the first step is a medical consultation and diagnosis. We offer a free is capitalized and in bold print, pre-abortion evaluation, which sounds like some kind of medically necessary thing that it's not. I don't like that. That includes a confirmation of pregnancy by our experienced and licensed medical team. I don't remember seeing licensed medical team before. I'm sure it was there, but I wonder if they can use that. I don't like that. That bothers me. I don't. It says, during your consultation, our team performs a pregnancy test, and if positive and if you qualify, an ultrasound will be performed to confirm a viable pregnancy, determine how far along you are, and ensure there are no medical risks associated with the pregnancy, such as ectopic pregnancy, which you have to see a doctor for, which I wish that they would have said. It says, Options for Women Clinic is overseen by a medical director who practices at a local OBGYN clinic. And what is a medical director? Like, is that a licensed profession? It says, in addition to all our services being free, we're also completely confidential, regardless of what you're considering. If you think you may be pregnant, call, schedule an appointment, or email us. So it says you are completely confidential. They may feel that way, but they are not obligated by law, by any law, to be confidential, because they are not subject to HIPAA laws. So there's nothing stopping them from calling your school or your parents or your spouse or your church or anything that you subscribe to. There's nothing stopping them, because they are not subject to HIPAA laws. So they don't have to be worried about violating your privacy. There's no law stopping them. So sure, they can say that everything's completely confidential, but I mean, that's like when you say, it's just between us, but I'm gonna tell my husband. Like, there's nothing stopping you. At the bottom here, it says, facts about abortion. Once you've determined your due date, click on one of the links before to learn more about abortion procedures you might have. Option for Women does not perform or refer for abortions, but strives to provide accurate information about all of your options, including facts about abortions. So let's click on the first link, which is up to 9 weeks after last missed period. It says 404, page not found, so that's fun. Next link is between 6 and 12 weeks after last missed period. So if you are between 6 and 12 weeks into your pregnancy, you may have a suction aspiration or a vacuum aspiration procedure. Yeah, but if you are up to 10 weeks pregnant, you could also do the medication abortion. I don't see that listed here. So they leave that out for some reason. Maybe because it sounds less scary. I don't know, but it's not on here. I mean, they're not required to give you all of the information. They're not required to do much of anything, because there's really no oversight by state health departments of these places. So they talk about suction aspiration. It sounds like they use medically accurate jargon and don't use any kind of emotionally charged language to try to sway your decision here. Until you get to the part where it says, as with any medical procedure, it is important to have regulations in place. in the case of an emergency. So it says risks and side effects. Even still, there are risks and side effects with any operation. It says risks and side effects: cramping, nausea, sweating, feeling faint. Less frequent side effects include possible heavy or prolonged bleeding, blood clots, damage to the cervix, perforation of the uterus, infection due to retained products of conception, and infection caused by a STI or bacteria being introduced to the uterus, causing fever, pain, abdominal tenderness, and possibly scarring. And again, they list that they do not perform or refer for abortions. But the first thing I noticed is that on this entire page there was not a single source cited, which is worrisome, because where are they getting their information from? I mean, even if it's correct, where are they getting it from? You should always cite sources. That's why medical journals cite sources. That's important. And they said less frequent side effects. Okay, how much less? How much by percent? Like, how much less of a side effect is this? How often does this happen? How much does this happen versus how much does this happen in pregnancy? Because a lot of those things that were listed can happen in pregnancy. Like, you have a risk of bleeding, infection, damage to your organs, blood clots in pregnancy. So if they're going to list these things under abortion, I hope that they're also listing these things under parenting and pregnancy on their website. That way women can make an informed choice, right? That's what we're all here for, right? To give women the autonomy and the truth and the facts to empower them and help them make the right decision for them. The next page is abortion between 12 and 21 weeks after your last missed period, and they talk about DNC procedure and a D&E procedure. It seems like all of this is accurate. I'm not sure. I'm not a doctor. The only emotionally charged thing or scare tactic I'm seeing used is, it says a D&E, this procedure normally takes about 30 minutes. It is usually performed in a hospital or an abortion clinic with trained providers because of the greater risk for complications. Again, how much greater, what complications, and what are your sources? These are important things to cite so that women can be fully informed. Risks and side effects is the next section underneath that, and it says nausea, bleeding, cramping, infection due to retained products of conception, or infection caused by STI. Although rare, the following risks are related to dilation and evacuation, damage to uterine lining or cervix, perforation of the uterus, infection, and blood clots. And again, those are all risks that you can get during pregnancy. And then here's where things start to get emotionally charged to quite a degree. So right underneath this, it says fetal development, week 14 to 16. Fingerprints have developed. Baby begins sucking. Baby responds to outside stimuli. Patient can feel baby move, which seems like fluttering in the stomach. Fetal development, week 17 through 20. Nails grow on finger and toes, eyebrows, eyelashes. Patient feels baby's movements more strongly. You start to use the word baby rather than fetus. And not only that, but you have this on your abortion section where you're giving women medically accurate info, and then you're also giving them info that they don't need in order to make the choice about abortion. The only reason that that's on that page is to shame and guilt trip women, and it's emotional manipulation. Women know that babies develop in the womb. You don't need to tell them. They already know that. The only reason it's there is because you put it there on purpose to make them feel bad. Oh, look, this fetus now has eyelashes. You should feel bad. That's not okay. That's not empowering women. That's using emotionally charged language to try to sway their decision. And that's not giving women autonomy. What's funny is nothing on this entire page has any source until you get to the bottom and you see that the only thing for which a source is cited is the fetal development, which they cite the Mayo Clinic. It's not important for you to cite any sources until you get to the parts about fetal development. Why? Because you care more about the fetus, not about the woman. And then the last part of the last link in their abortion section is to a page called Soft Touch Abortion, which I have never heard of this before. Again, I am not a doctor. I've never heard of this. It says soft touch abortion is specifically for early age pregnancies and is marketed as being a safe and natural way to terminate a pregnancy. Marketed. Like, is a medical procedure. This is not the pharmaceutical industry. So it sounds like a vacuum aspiration, which is irregular bleeding or spotting can occur for the first 2 weeks after the procedure. Avoid tampons. Cramps may be similar to menstrual cramps, could last for several hours. It is possible that this procedure will not remove the embryo in its entirety. This can result in serious side effects, including the need for surgical intervention. Potentially dangerous side effects can include uterine or cervical perforation, pelvic infection, and excess bleeding, which again, all risks of pregnancy and going to term too. So I'm not seeing a single source cited, so I don't know. I've never heard of soft touch abortion before, so I don't have anything to say about that. But there's no sources cited here, which is worrisome, you know, because accuracy. I'm not saying that it's not a thing, I'm just saying that I've never heard of it before, and I would have liked to have seen sources so that I could have looked into this for myself and not just take this not licensed medical clinic's word for it. So the next part that we're going to go to is their parenting, which I assume will include information about pregnancy, including medically accurate information about pregnancy, because they were so worried about all this medically accurate information, despite not citing any sources, about abortion. You would think that if they're being fair and non-biased, that they're going to do the same for pregnancy and parenting. So we're going to go to their parenting section, and the very first thing it says, instead of saying come to us and get an ultrasound, it says if you decide parenting is right for you, this information is helpful for your pregnancy. Very first thing, see your OBGYN right away. Why would you not recommend that to the women who are interested in abortion? Why is it that the first thing that you say to a woman interested in carrying to term is that she should see an OBGYN, but not an abortion-seeking woman? So it says here, take your prenatal vitamins, eat a healthy, balanced diet, crackers at bedtime, eat calcium, take iron, avoid alcohol. By the way, you can take iron in pregnancy and still end up with severe iron deficiency anemia and then need a blood transfusion, like me, like I did. I had to have a blood transfusion while my baby was in the NICU. It was great. Try to quit smoking, avoid alcohol, get plenty of rest. Get plenty of rest. What if you have other kids? There's no rest. I don't sleep. Do not take any medications unless otherwise directed by your doctor. Like, oh, so doctoring is important now. Like, seeing a doctor is important now. It says pregnancy information. So it does say common pregnancy symptoms are bleeding, delay, difference in menstruation, but it lists these as pregnancy symptoms. It doesn't say anything about risks. Difference in menstruation, swollen tender breasts, fatigue and tiredness, nausea, morning sickness, backaches, headaches, frequent urination, darkening of areolas, food cravings, pregnancy complication syndromes. Call your doctor or go to the emergency right away if you experience any of the following during your pregnancy: vaginal bleeding of any amount, abdominal pain with a fever, cramping and abdominal pain more than your period, burning with urination, puffiness in your hands and face, or excess vomiting. As I suspected, they listed risk after risk about abortion with no sources cited, no information on how often this happened. I mean, abortion is safe. It's listed as safe by the World Health Organization. So to demonize it that way and to do it so passive aggressively is really not cool. So they did not list any side effects and risks of pregnancy, which, I mean, I guess I shouldn't have assumed that they would. And then it talks about having prenatal care visits, what typically happens at these. You should do self-care during pregnancy, get plenty of rest, again, is listed, which, okay, if you have other kids, good freaking luck. And then it has a section on fetal development. Now, I appreciate that the fetal development is in this section because a woman who wants to go to term with her pregnancy will typically want to know information about fetal development, right? I mean, they want to know what's happening in there because they want to know, all right, what's happening now? I'm cooking it. I want to know what happens. But a woman who is having an abortion, she wants to terminate the pregnancy, and that's her choice. You don't need to bombard her with fetal development in order to emotionally sway her. That's nice of them to list for, you know, their favorite clients, which are the ones that go to term with their pregnancies. The next thing I wanted to look at is, oh, you know what? I didn't make any notes on this, but I just realized it says that under services, it lists free pregnancy testing, ultrasound, STI and HIV testing, and then it says women's wellness exams. There's no way that this place can offer exams. They're not a licensed medical provider, so we're going to look at that real quick. Okay, so it says women's wellness exams, free women's wellness program. See, that's misleading. You're not, one of your services is not exams. You said services, exams. That's misleading. That's false advertisement. That's just messed up. Because that's there to make it look like they are a licensed medical provider. It's the same with all the other stuff that they're using, like the stethoscope picture. So basically it says you may qualify today for a free voucher of the following services if eligible. For your free wellness consultation, call today to determine if you are eligible for your free exam. They don't provide exams, so that's messed up, and I don't like that. I don't like this. This is not okay. So it says they offer STI and HIV testing, but even if you are found to have an STI, they can't give you any kind of antibiotics for anything because they are not a licensed medical provider. So the best they can do is be like, hey, go to a doctor and get antibiotics. So the next thing I want to look at is their adoption section. Thinking adoption, can adoption be good for me? Can I choose the family? Yes. How much contact can I have? You may have as much contact as is comfortable for you. Does the father have any rights? They do talk about this. The birth father's rights are equal to yours. If you disagree on adoption or you no longer have a relationship with him, your agency will work with the court to determine if his rights can be terminated. So that's good that they make that known. Do I need an attorney or do I pay my agency to assist me with the adoption? No. So I'm glad that they have that. Women do struggle after adoption, so I wish that they would put something on here that says some women do struggle and you may need to talk to someone after, you may deal with grief, so we can refer you to mental health services, or I don't know, even if the woman is religious, we can refer you to a pastor to talk to, or and just something. Like, that's the thing, is the contrast here is what I'm having a problem with, and that's generally my issue with these websites, these CPC websites, is the language that's used to talk about abortion is so different in contrast to how they talk about parenting and going to term with your pregnancy and adoption. There is no risks or side effects when they talk about pregnancy. They just talk about normal pregnancy that has no risks and no side effects, and you're going to have these prenatal visits, and here's how your baby's developing. But they don't talk about you might get gestational diabetes, you might have anemia or high blood pressure. It causes you to have to go into labor, induced labor 3 weeks early, then have your baby, and your baby might end up in the NICU. You might have to get a blood transfusion, like all these things that can happen, or you might have a pulmonary embolism. I mean, if you're going to list all these risks for abortion, you should list all these risks for pregnancy. You should portray the two options equally. And with adoption is not always this sunshine and rainbows things. Sometimes parents have deep grief afterwards, even if they made the right decision. If you're going to portray one thing as hard, you should portray the other thing with equal interest and let them know, here is the full range of the spectrum, here's what might happen, and here's how we can help you. Oh, sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, and the specific websites, like for these CPCs, if they list, like if they use religious language or if they use medically inaccurate information.
That should be something that the Department of Health would have to oversight over. It would be a breach contract. So they have, kind of like with any contract, that if the department, depending on what the offense is, the level of the offense, it can range from termination of contract to requiring corrective action, which may be something as simple as removing any inaccurate language from the website, or being whatever it is, being expensive publications, to if it occurred on multiple occasions, it may be something that rises to the level of termination of that contract. But that would be something where the Department of Health, through the Florida Pregnancy Care Network, would enforce.
Okay. Yeah, I did contact the Florida Pregnancy Care Network, and unfortunately their website's gone. And I contacted them today, and they only have like 3 or 4 people working for them. And when I contacted them, they had no idea what I was talking about as far as like licensure.
Yeah, because
they're not licensed.
Okay.
It's only a contractual relationship, so there's no licensure requirement.
Okay, so it's not a license, it's a contract overseen by...
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so the main contract is between the Department of Health and the Florida Pregnancy Care Network. That's the main contract. The Florida Pregnancy Care Network subcontracts all the different providers that you see out in the community.
Okay, so this is very annoying. I was like, hey, are you licensed? And they were like, yes. And I was like, what? I realized that I don't know anything about medical licenses of establishments or of persons. I don't know anything. I do know that you have to be licensed, and I assumed that was through the Florida Department of Health. When I called them, I said, like through the Florida Department of Health. Okay, so that's not how it works. I called the Florida Department of Health this morning, and I was like, what can you tell me about licensing of crisis pregnancy centers or pregnancy care centers or pregnancy resource centers? They call themselves all kinds of things. And the guy was like, let me ask. So he asked his supervisor, and then they tried to get on a website and it wasn't working. And he was like, all right, I'm just going to tell you what my supervisor told me and then tell you to go check out this website. And he said, so basically the Florida Department of Health contracts out licensing of CPCs. They don't contract out licensing of friggin' tanning bed salons, but I don't understand. They contracted out, and so he gave me this website, FloridaPregnancySupportServices.com. So I went to that website, and all it is basically, it looks like an umbrella organization for the entirety of Florida's CPCs. That's what it looks like. So I called them, and they were like, no, we don't do that. Try myfpcn.com, which stands for Florida Pregnancy Care Network. I tried myfpcn.com, and this is what I found. Nothing. There is no website. It's gone. So I called them, and I talked to some lady. This is insane. And she said, no, we don't deal with that. She was like, you have one in your area, right? Where are you? And I said, I'm in blank city. And she said, oh, okay, I actually have their info right in front of me. Do you want their number? You could call them and ask them what their licensing procedure was. So I just went in a huge freaking circle just to go back to where I started, which is calling the CPC. This should not be this way. On top of this, I also found, because what it sounds like is that CPCs have oversight of themselves, which sounds terrible. That's like me saying to my 3-year-old, hey, no cookies, and to ensure that you're not eating any cookies before dinner, I'm going to put in charge of you, your 5-year-old cousin. Why would the 5-year-old cousin be a good choice? Why would they're not going to ensure that the 3-year-old's not eating cookies. You don't put somebody with the same interests in charge of somebody else. You have to put somebody unbiased to ensure that there are rules being followed, and I found that there are rules. I found this, I'll put a picture, and also I'm going to link everything that I'm talking about down below, but this is House of Representatives Staff Analysis Bill number CS/HB 969, Pregnancy Support Services. So it says Florida Pregnancy Support Services, and like I said, called them after Department of Health told me to call them, was established in 2006 to provide support, counseling, and services to pregnant women and their families that promote and encourage childbirth under contract with the Florida Department of Health. Florida Pregnancy Care Network, which is the second place that I just called, Inc., manages a network of pregnancy help centers that offer services such as pregnancy testing, counseling, education, training, referrals to state, community, and medical resources. One of these places should know about licensure. But I talked to both and they don't know. So this is frustrating because what it's sounding like is that CPCs oversee CPCs through contract with the government, which sounds ridiculous to me.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
They started telling us what we could and could not say to our clients and patients in the counseling room. I mean, they did initially have some parameters that we weren't able to, because we're a faith-based ministry,
Yeah.
and so then they came down with some new guidelines, and we just decided that we needed to stick to our core values, and that we could no longer participate.
Oh, okay, yeah, because there's all that language in HB 41 about them not allowing anybody to use religious language and all that.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So in the counseling room, we were able to get around it by not talking about that when we were communicating the options counseling with our clients. So we were staying true to the contract, and we had the client sign something after we were done with that discussion, so that they knew that we were ending that part of the discussion, and then we moved on to more spiritual discussion. So,
And FPSSP doesn't allow that at all, huh?
What's that?
And FPSSP doesn't allow that at
No.
all. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's only 61 to 65 pregnancy resource centers that are affiliated with them, which is surprising because there's so many of you guys of the resource centers, and yet there's so few that are actually affiliated with FPSSP. So I was.
Well, so now you know one of the reasons why.
Yeah.
Because of they're just, anytime you're dealing with the government, then you are under their guidelines and their policies, and so.
Yeah, because they want to separate church and state and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
And we just could not continue to be a part of that, so.
Yeah, understandable. So it's good that they don't require the contracts then between FPSSP and providers. You guys are still allowed to be a pregnancy resource center, just not an affiliate with FPSSP anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we're a standalone. I mean,
yeah.
We're a nonprofit, and we're not under the jurisdiction of the state, except to have do our 990s.
Yeah. Yeah, that works
every
out.
year. I mean, we don't have any. The state doesn't govern us whatsoever, except on health laws.
Yeah, which you guys don't have to be licensed, which is nice.
Well, we are a licensed.
Licensed medical clinic? Because I thought that was what FPSSP was for. That's kind of the gist of what I was getting was they make.
No, we have to have a license. I mean, we have a medical doctor that oversees everything. A medical director that oversees the care that we provide. But that's all. That's a regulation that's health related.
Oh, okay.
What FPSSP was providing support to us to run our programs.
Oh, right, with the pregnancy tests and all that.
And the counseling that we provided.
Right. I'm assuming that FPSSP gives out booklets and stuff, kind of how Heartbeat International does.
Say the beginning part of that.
I assume that FPSSP gives out booklets and stuff similar to how Heartbeat International does and stuff like that.
We didn't use any of SPSSP's paraphernalia, marketing or whatever in our pregnancy center.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not sure. I mean, Heartbeat is another support for pregnancy centers across the country.
Yeah.
But we don't really. We may have some of their materials, but we normally CareNet is who we're affiliated with.
Oh, CareNet. Yeah, that's the other one.
Yeah, we always have to be careful when it's a reporter calling because they're, they tend to. I'm not saying that they bend, and I know that that may be what you intend to do in your future. But I do not like to have phone conversations with reporters. I would rather have email, so it's in writing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because then we can control what we say.
Right.
And what the written word.
So here's where we're at with this. I thought there has to be something more. I called Florida Pregnancy Support Services Program, which we will hear from now on referred to as FPSSP because that's shorter. So FPSSP told me, no, we don't do that. And their website looks like what they are is similar to CareNet or Heartbeat International in the way that they're basically like an umbrella organization for CPCs. So they are a CPC entity that helps CPCs. That's what CareNet and Heartbeat International are. They said, no, we don't do that either, even though they're listed in the bill. So they should know something about this. They didn't even mention the bill. Instead, they said, go to myfpcn.com, which FPCN stands for Florida Pregnancy Care Network. Myfpcn.com doesn't work. That website is broken. It's dead. And I can't find any website for FPCN. So I found a phone number and I called them, and they have like 4 people that work for them, 3 or 4. I don't understand. And I know that that seems like kind of a small thing to complain about, but how is something that has 4 people working with it in charge of something that is contracted out by the Department of Health, how are they in charge of CPCs? I don't get it. I don't understand how this all works, and I should, because we're paying for it. This is paid for by taxpayers. So I should know how this works. I should be able to call and they should be able to tell me, oh, it's not particularly licensing that we do, here's what we do for CPCs, and explain it to me. But that's not what happened. The lady at FPCN said, no, we don't do licensing. Why don't you just call a CPC near you and ask how they got licensed? Okay, so I did. I called one in Brandon, Florida, that I'm forgetting the name of, but I will just put it right here. And I called them and I talked to somebody who works in client services. At first it was fine. And then she said, I don't know the information that you're looking for. She told me that FPSSP is a grant program, and it's fine that she didn't understand because it's not very clear how this all works, and she's just a person working there. I don't fault her at all for not understanding. She wasn't the director of the center, so she doesn't know. Whatever, it's fine. And she says to me, I mean, I could have you talk to somebody else, and here's where it got weird. She said, but they're busy people, and I'm just not sure what your intentions are. And up to this point I had been perfectly nice with her, and there was really no reason why this kind of got weird, except for the fact that just before this she had asked my name and asked why I was looking for this information, and I told her my name is Rachel and I'm looking because I'm looking into this because it's an issue I'm interested in and I want to do a YouTube video about it, and that's the truth. And then she got weird. She said, you know, they're busy people and I'm not sure what your intentions are, and I said, well, this is public health information. And then she changed her tone. I was like, oh yeah, of course, yeah, sure. But I wasn't thinking that it would be a long conversation or that she would question my intentions on the telephone. I thought that she would just either say, I'm not sure, here's who you can call instead, or just say, yeah, this is how we got a license. It didn't go that way. So after that, I said, okay, well, you had mentioned previously, before she questioned my intentions, that you guys are affiliated with CareNet. And she said, yeah, and we are subject to all of their directives and such, which I'm sure they get like a packet the same way Heartbeat International does with their affiliates. They get like a packet and they're told to say all this stuff, and in order to be an affiliate they have to comply with all this crap, yada yada. So I said, okay, do you think if I call CareNet that they would know anything about this? And she said, it's possible, but I'm not sure. So that's fine. So I called CareNet. She said, well, we don't do that. We don't help with licensing. What you can do is you could, if you're interested in opening a CPC, you could ask a lawyer at your church to help you with licensure work. Maybe they'll do it as pro bono work. And I wanted to laugh because I'm like, the last freaking thing I would want to do is open a CPC. If I opened a CPC, it would be a whole lot different than what you guys do. And according to HB 41, I wouldn't be eligible to be an affiliate with the FPSSP/FPCN program, so I wouldn't get any funding because I would be willing to give women accurate information about abortion, tell them where they can go if they would like to get an abortion, because I believe in autonomy. But because of the language in HB 41, I would not be eligible for funding if I did that, because they only give funding if you are a pregnancy and birth focused. You can't tell them anything else. You're not allowed. Otherwise you don't get funding. That's what they're worried about. It's just painful to me because it feels like this is a violation of separation in church and state because this is a religious ideology, and this is putting religious ideology in a bill that is passed. It was passed in 2018 and went into effect July 1st, 2018. And this is a religious ideology. That's why Rick Scott passed it, because Rick Scott is a Christian. And these are Christian organizations. That's what CareNet and Heartbeat International are. They're Christian organizations, and they have infiltrated the states, and we pay for these places to give women inaccurate medical information, and nothing's done about it. You heard the guy on the phone yesterday. He said, so what happened was I called CareNet. They said they couldn't help. So I just started calling like random whatever I could find. And I noticed that in the bill, it mentioned Department of Health and Human Services, which is different from Department of Health. So I called Department of Health and Human Services, and it rang, and it went straight to a person, which was utterly shocking to me. And she was like, yeah, let me see what I can figure out. And I was like, great! Because I've been on the phone with like 6 different people who should know what I'm talking about, and they don't. So she didn't call me back, somebody else did, and I did not catch his name. He was on the phone with me, and he explained to me that a CPC is not given a medical license. That's not what they do. The Department of Health contracts out control over CPC, the oversight of CPCs, to FPSSP and FPCN. And if you have an issue with one of them, if one of them is breaking these rules, like using religious language or using coercive methods to sway a woman, then you can report that to the Florida Department of Health. This should not be so hard to figure out. It should not be this way that CPCs are allowed to have a bill that says that they are certified wellness centers when it's not clear to the lay person, the average pregnant person, if there's a difference between a wellness center and a licensed medical center. The average person is not going to know that, and that's why they do this. And that's really the overall problem I'm having here, is that language used and bills with language used and websites of CPCs are tailored to confuse women. They're made to be misleading, and I don't think that that's ethical. I mean, the Journal of the American Medical Association agrees with me. I'll link that down below. HB 41 codified these CPCs, and between 61 and 65, that he said on the phone, crisis pregnancy centers have contracts with this FPSSP/FPCN, which is contracted with the Department of Health. And my thinking is, why? Why them? Why did they get to be contracted out by the Department of Health? This is paid for by taxpayer dollars. We should be able to clearly see that this is being oversighted, and it's not. I mean, these are quite clearly CPC umbrella organizations, not different from Heartbeat International or CareNet. So why did they get this contract? I keep saying I'm almost done with this video, but I'm really not. Today we're going to talk about Foundations of Life. This is a CPC that is in the county that I live in. So we're going to go over their website. I did already call them on January 2nd. Today is January 10th or so. And I asked, are you a licensed medical facility? And they said no. So that's important that they say that. They are affiliated. They are one of those 61 to 65 CPC affiliates of Florida Pregnancy Care Network and FPSSP. So they are one of those. So they should not have, according to the law HB 41, they should not have any religious language, coercive language, and they're supposed to have medically accurate information. And that does include their website, according to the person that I talked to from the Department of Health and Human Services. However, unfortunately, they violate all of that. This is the first one that violates the whole not using religious language thing. So we're going to go over that. We're going to go over the entirety of their website together. And this is one that I am going to be reporting to the Florida Department of Health. I mean, really, I could probably just report all of them. Who knows if it'll do anything. Let's go over their website. Okay, so first and foremost, let's go to their front page. It says, "Pregnant, we can help," and it has a picture that looks like a doctor in a lab coat, a woman doctor in a lab coat, like touching the hand of a pregnant person. It says, "Pregnant, we can help, considering adoption, abortion, know the facts." So what we're looking for here is we're going to look for medically accurate information of both abortion and pregnancy, and how they talk about adoption. That's important. Do they offer post-abortion counseling? Okay. Do they also offer post-adoptive counseling? Because that also has an effect on the woman. Do they offer post-pregnancy counseling? Because postpartum depression is a thing. I mean, you're looking at somebody who struggled with it during every pregnancy and after every pregnancy. You're going to be looking for religious language, so anything that talks about religious consequences, spiritual consequences, how abortion affects your spirituality, that kind of thing, which has no medical basis at all. Okay, it says, "Pregnant, need help, you are not alone. Foundations of Life, Centers of Catholic Charities. We offer free, confidential, and non-judgmental support to women of all ages." Yeah, sure, but you're not subject to HIPAA laws, so you don't actually have to remain confidential. Like you're saying, yeah, we offer it, it's confidential, but there's nothing holding them to that. Like they could violate that at any point because they're not subject to any HIPAA laws. Dealing with an unplanned pregnancy can be difficult. You don't have to be alone. Your choices today will affect your tomorrows. You owe it to yourself and your baby to get the best information to protect your health and your future. Our pregnancy centers provide the following pregnancy options: accurate information on abortion, parenting, and adoption. Mentoring program called Balanced Life, and it looks like there's a clickable link here. I'm going to be honest with you, I did not go through this whole website. I got really distracted. It says that they offer something called Balanced Life counseling, mentor program for you during your pregnancy and until your baby is 1 year old. Extension of services past 1 year is dependent upon the needs of the client and assessment of the mentor staff. They're not saying like actual resources that are available in Hillsborough County, which makes me feel like, okay, are you providing people with some sort of licensed medical provider, licensed counselor that can help them with these different things and refer them to different programs within the county and the state? Or are you just trying to proselytize? Like, are you just trying to witness? It says, if you are dealing with an unplanned pregnancy, you may be considering abortion as a solution to your health. Because we care about your health and well-being, we want you to know the facts. This is already not sounding legitimate. Abortion is not just a simple medical procedure. Yes, it is. I got some notes in here. So outpatient clinics typically do the majority of abortion procedures in the United States, as opposed to like OBGYN offices and hospitals. And yeah, they're finding that they have a less than 1% of their patients experience a complication that requires hospitalization. Also, the CDC and the World Health Organization list abortion as a safe and effective procedure. It is just a simple medical procedure, especially when you're just taking the abortion pill, which is RU486, and then following up with misoprostol. It's very safe. For many women, it is a life-changing event with significant physical, emotional, and spiritual consequences. So in the same paragraph, not only did they lie about abortion being a safe and simple medical procedure, for many women it is a life-changing event with significant physical, emotional, and spiritual consequences. None of that is accurate. Women typically who have been surveyed find they don't regret their abortion. It has not been found to have any significant mental health or physical health impacts. And what the frick are they talking about with spiritual consequences? How would we quantify that? That's using religious language, and that is against HB 41. About abortion, the first pill of a chemical abortion stops the baby's beating heart. That's not right. No, mifepristone, I'm not a doctor. This is how you spell it. Blocks progesterone. It doesn't just like you take it and it seizes up the heart and makes it stop. Like, it blocks progesterone to the fetus, and therefore it does not allow the fetus to continue to grow anymore. And then you expel the fetus using misoprostol. That's really it. That sounds really misleading. I would really like to talk to an OBGYN to see if I have all that right, but I'm pretty sure I do. Again, I'm not a doctor. It sounds like emotionally charged language rather than medically accurate information. The second day medication causes contractions to expel the baby. Again, they said baby instead of fetus. Misoprostol is what they're talking about, the second day medication. That's, yeah, basically accurate. I've taken misoprostol when I had my second miscarriage. I had to take it. That shit sucks. That stuff caused awful cramping. I laid on the couch and cried. So they said this method is used up to 49 days after the last menstrual period. I don't think that's accurate either. I think it's up to 70 days. After the last menstrual period may cause cramping, heavy bleeding, nausea, or vomiting. That's so weird because I think those are all side effects of pregnancy and carrying to term. A chemical abortion pill reversal may be possible through injections of the natural hormone progesterone, which will counteract the effects and restore circulation to the preborn baby. Call your OBGYN immediately, or call this number for help. That's, how many strikes is that now? I don't even know. This is ridiculous. Surgery carries risk, especially invasive surgery, which involves inserting an instrument into your body. This is all fear-mongering. Surgical abortion procedures are invasive and carry normal surgical risks. Again, 1% hospital admittance rate. Like, it's not unsafe. Risk is also dependent on the doctor's proficiency. Yeah, and very few doctors will perform abortions now because of trap laws and also being targeted by anti-abortion advocates. The ones that are practicing because they find it's important and they understand the procedure and are still willing to go through with giving women the option to have an abortion. They are well practiced. It's not just like brand new, fresh out of medical school doctors willy-nilly performing these unsafe abortions. This kind of language is specifically written to scare women, and it's upsetting. A first trimester abortion from 5 to 12 weeks starts with a metal rod to open your cervix and the insertion of a tube to vacuum the baby and other tissue out of your uterus. Pain, bleeding, and feelings of loss may be felt. Feelings of loss? The late-term abortion process, I don't think that 16 to 18 weeks is considered a late-term abortion. That's a second trimester abortion. I think a late-term abortion is considered 21 weeks or later, or maybe 24 weeks or later, and they're rare, and they normally happen because there's a problem with either the woman's health or a problem with the baby, such as anencephaly, things like that. That's a whole nother issue that we're not going to get into in this video. Performed 16 to 18 weeks and later, it varies according to baby's age. Generally, laminaria are inserted to open the cervix, a 1 or 2 day process. The baby is dismembered and removed from the mother's uterus. Labor and delivery of a fully formed dead child may occur. A woman can change her mind after insertion of the laminaria without harming the baby, unless the doctor has injected the baby with heart-stopping medication. Following an abortion, relief is a common feeling, but it does not always last. Once a baby is aborted, he or she cannot be brought back to life. Deep feeling of emptiness and sadness may occur immediately or after a period of time. Many women, that's a quantifiable number, bury the experience, face depression, long for the baby, or suffer lifelong guilt or grief. Most abortion clinics do not help a woman cope with her loss. Pregnancy centers assist with understanding and reconciling guilt and grief after the loss of a child through abortion. Stop. Verify the clinic is staffed with qualified nurses, medical assistants, and doctors. That's really rich coming from a CPC that does not do any of that. You're saying that you have alternatives to abortion, and yet you don't staff with qualified doctors, nurses assistants, or nurses or medical assistants because you're not legally mandated to. You're not even legally mandated to follow HIPAA laws. The audacity. The audacity and the hypocrisy here is just astounding. Ooh, this is fun. Do the abortion doctors have hospital privileges, or are emergency room doctors faced with handling abortion complications? Hilarious. Because again, I just want to pull out this little factoid. Less than 1% of patients at outpatient clinics who get an abortion experience a complication that requires hospitalization. On top of that, both the American Medical Association and the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology say there is simply no medical basis for requiring hospital admitting privileges on abortion providers. Abortion is not your only option. If not ready or able to parent, adoption offers the opportunity to live and let your baby live. You are in control. You can choose an open, closed, or semi-open adoption and pick the adoptive family to love and raise your child. Financial help is available. Parenting is also an option. Many pregnancy centers provide assistance to make parenting easier and make referrals to other agencies to meet your specific needs. Rape or incest victims, oh no, are often encouraged to abort their baby. However, abortion adds another layer of hurt and harm to a woman. She has endured terrible trauma and is now being coached into taking the life of her own child. Coached by whom? Who? What is this based off of? Abortion is also traumatic, physically and emotionally. Ma'am, do you have sources? Adoption puts a woman in control. She is empowered to turn a tragedy into a gift of life. If she chooses to parent, she embraces motherhood and wins. This is gross. I don't like reading this. We offer free and confidential consultation. Our staff is trained. Trained in what? What qualifications do you need to work at a CPC? All you need is a background check. That's it. I looked. It's an HB 41. That's all you need. You don't have to be a medical assistant. You don't have to be a nurse. You don't need to have an LPN degree, RN, nurse practitioner. Don't need to be a doctor. Don't need to be an OBGYN. Have a PhD, nothing. There is no range. You don't need to be nothing. You don't need to have any sort of medical career at all. You don't even have to be, you don't need any sort of license to do this. So trained in what? Underneath abortion, they have a whole section on the morning after pill. Yeah, I feel like that's misleading to put directly under abortion a section called morning after pill. That's misleading. So under abortion, they have facts about abortion. Should I have an abortion? Abortion procedure facts. Risks about abortion. Morning after pill. Your body, your choice. Post-abortion help and healing. Let's go check out Your Body, Your Choice, shall we? So this section, Your Body, Your Choice, says about your pregnancy. The age of the baby, or gestational age, is calculated from the first day of the mother's last menstrual period. The exact date of conception is not actually known. So the first day of the last menstrual period is used to determine how old the baby is. So this entire section, labeled Your Body, Your Choice, is entirely emotionally charged language talking about fetal development. So that's gross. When a baby is only 18 days into development, the heart starts beating. At 5 weeks after the mother's last menstrual period, there is a brain and spinal column. At 9 weeks, the tiny human being has arms, legs, fingers, toes, eyes, ears, and brain waves. Brain waves. But they don't become sentient until like 21 to 24 weeks, I think. So what does brain waves mean exactly? See, they don't elaborate. And have you noticed that in this entire thing, not a single source has been cited? Not a single source. Nothing. No data. They could just be making this stuff up. They probably are. What is the abortion pill and how does it work? A chemical abortion starts with a pill that stops the beating heart. And then it says, read about the morning after pill. How will abortion affect future pregnancies? Surgery carries risks, especially invasive surgery. All surgical abortion procedures are invasive and do carry normal surgical risk. Risk is also dependent on the proficiency of the doctor performing the surgery. So that seems misleading because it doesn't actually answer the question ever. So it seems like, and this is just a guess, that it's probably there to make women think, oh, I didn't think of that. Oh, there's risks. Oh no, am I not going to be able to have another pregnancy in the future when I'm ready to parent? If I have feelings of guilt or grief after the abortion, does the clinic provide help? Many people report coldness and lack of sympathy from the clinic staff. No, they don't. Is it common to have regrets and sorrow? One of the most common feelings following an abortion is relief. However, this does not always last. Each woman is unique, as are her circumstances, blah, blah, blah. Once a baby is aborted, he or she cannot be brought back to life. Does the doctor have hospital admitting privileges? Is the doctor an OBGYN? Many abortion doctors do not have hospital privileges. Emergency room doctors are faced with handling the doctor's abortion complications. What is the name of the doctor who owns the clinic? What is his or her medical specialty? Yeah, typically you can find clinics that are not owned by doctors themselves. What happens is people open clinics and then they follow all of these things that these trap laws enact so that they can stay open, and they have doctors come to them. Like, why are you making it sound like abortion providing outpatient clinics are these sketchy places that have, you know, just like Joe Schmo coming from a back alley to provide an abortion? Like, that's not happening. Okay, I just want to point out that nowhere on their website have I seen the words "not a medical clinic," like we are not a medical clinic, and I haven't seen anywhere on their website that they say we do not perform or refer for abortions. I'm just gonna real quick look at the whole parenting thing and adoption and see what they say. As birth parents, making an adoption plan, you are eligible for pre-adoption counseling and support, pre- and postpartum medical expenses, baby's delivery and hospital care, reasonable living expenses until and after the baby is born. Yeah, that's because I think Catholic Charities provides that. Yeah, Catholic Charities is a licensed private Florida adoption agency that has been assisting women with adoption planning since 1964, blah, blah, blah. I'm not seeing anything about the effects of adoption. I also did just go over their pregnancy resources page. I have it up here, and it just lists like what they do. Alright, so we're going to go over another CPC. So the name of this place is called A Woman's Choice. When you look up A Woman's Choice, Lakeland, Florida, the first thing that comes up is, like, you know, that typical Google page, and the picture that's there is what looks like either a doctor or a nurse in scrubs wearing a stethoscope, and I would bet everything in my savings account right now that that person does not work there. This is already off to a not so great start because they're using pictures of medical professionals, like stock photos, to make it seem like they're a legitimate medical clinic, which they are not. They are a certified wellness clinic according to the state, which we've already been over all that, and that's just disgusting. Okay, so their website says A Woman's Choice, get answers about your unplanned pregnancy, book an appointment or chat with us. So the first thing it says is we are here to help. The second thing on their main page says safety and confidentiality when you need it most, and there's like a literal picture of a nurse. Maybe there's a nurse that works there, but again, like, this is not an actual medical clinic. Services: pregnancy test, pre-abortion counseling, free ultrasound, STD testing, teen support. So it's interesting that they have pre-abortion counseling but not pregnancy counseling or adoption counseling listed. Pre-abortion counseling. Our team will provide you with information about all the options available for your pregnancy: abortion, adoption, and parenting. What each one involves. You will understand the process, potential risks, and possible outcomes for each option. I guarantee you that risks of pregnancy is not listed anywhere on this website. I guarantee you. It is critical that you have information about what is going on with your pregnancy and your body. Our staff at A Woman's Choice is here to provide that for you. One of our registered nurses will meet with you for a medical consultation and to provide you with the following services: lab quality pregnancy tests, limited obstetric ultrasound, limited STI testing. If you're going to have an abortion procedure, you need to know your rights and responsibilities as a patient to make sure you are protected and safe. The state, especially in a red state like Florida, where we fund CPCs in the way that we do with all of this HB 41 nonsense, the state is not going to let any abortion providing clinic just give a patient an abortion without making sure that they know their rights and responsibilities. I mean, there's got to be paperwork at the wazoo. All these little booklets, I'm sure that they give them. I know in some states they give them pro-life booklets, like that's legally mandated, and some of them have inaccurate medical information inside of them. Doctors are legally mandated to give patients inaccurate medical information in some red states. I think the one I'm thinking of is in Mississippi. I will link information down below, and I'll answer my own question right here. A Woman's Choice does not perform or refer for abortions, so that's good that they put that. Okay, so we're going to go to their abortion information, and right off the bat I'm seeing something that I've seen on other CPC websites, which is under abortion information, the Plan B pill is listed, which is misleading. If you're going to put that anywhere on your website, you need to put it under contraception. How do I know how far along I am? After a positive pregnancy test, an ultrasound will provide confirmation. This will determine which types of abortion are available to you and what the cost of an abortion will be. The cost of an abortion it varies between providers, so the fact that it's on here is kind of weird to me. What types of abortion procedures are there? Depending on how far along you are, you can have vacuum aspiration, DNC or DNE. So good. Thank you for providing accurate information. Although I don't understand why they left out the abortion pill on that list. That has to be a choice, because what types of abortion procedures are there? The first one, done up to 10 weeks, is the pill. So why is that not on here? This is why it's critical to have an ultrasound. Yes, but at any place you're going to go, if you do choose to get an abortion, they're going to do an ultrasound. They're not just going to take a CPC's word for how far along you are, or your word for how far along you are. They have to do an ultrasound. So, and they're not going to tell you that because they don't want you to go get an abortion. So they're not going to tell you, yes, you can get an ultrasound here, but if you do choose to get one, you're going to have to get another one done. Like, they're not going to tell you that. They don't want you to know that. Can I take the abortion pill? The abortion pill, or RU486, is not the same as the morning after pill or Plan B. Thank you. That is true. That is accurate. Thank you for providing that information, although I still don't understand why you don't have a section for contraception on your menu. Even if the only thing about contraception that you talk about is the morning after pill, it still should not be listed under abortion services. It's misleading. And that's the thing that I keep complaining about, is things on these websites are so misleading. Alright, let's go to their page about the abortion pill. If you're considering taking the abortion pill, there are critical questions that you need to have answers first. What is the abortion pill? It's a drug taken orally used to terminate a pregnancy in its earliest stage. It's accurate. Before taking it, however, you must confirm your pregnancy with a lab quality pregnancy test, which we provide for you at no cost. No cost is in italics. Cute. Plan B will not terminate an existing pregnancy. Very good. Thank you for adding that. But may prevent pregnancy if taken within 3 days of intercourse. The abortion pill will terminate an existing pregnancy. Both have risks, so it's important to learn the facts and confirm whether or not you're pregnant. None of this has any sources cited, which is, again, typical. We've gone through, this is the third website of a CPC we've been on, and they don't cite sources. That's just not a thing they do, which, in my opinion, House Bill 41 should have made that a priority. But they didn't, because they don't frickin' care about women's health. Okay, I'm going way too hard in my rants. I need to chill. Do I have to get an ultrasound to get the abortion pill? Because the abortion pill can only be taken up to 10 weeks of pregnancy, the ultrasound will determine how far along you are. Also, because the abortion pill does not terminate an ectopic pregnancy, which is a life-threatening condition, an ultrasound will rule that out. We can provide a free ultrasound for you at no cost. Yeah, but you're still gonna have to go to a doctor about the ectopic pregnancy and get another ultrasound done. So what's the point? The point is they want you to come in so they can convince you not to get an abortion. Are there risks or side effects for the abortion pill? Although the abortion pill is not a surgical procedure, it does have physical side effects as well as significant risks. Oh, you said significant risks. Okay, you want to back that up with some information? No? Okay. Yeah, there's no sources. There is not significant risks associated with RU486. That's not a thing. You're lying because you want to scare women into not having abortions. That's it. We can help you learn all about how it works and what the risks are through our pre-abortion counseling. How much does the abortion pill cost? Costs vary depending on the clinic where you get the abortion pill. You must determine how far along your pregnancy is with an ultrasound provided here free of cost. Can I get the abortion pill over the counter or online? The abortion pill is not available for purchase over the counter. You will have to visit a clinic to obtain it. An actual medical clinic though. Not like this, which is a wellness clinic. It is not recommended to purchase the abortion pill online. It is dangerous because there is no way to guarantee you're getting the right kind of medication, and some websites even sell fake pills. Okay, maybe, but the thing is that if a woman is desperate enough to not be pregnant, she will do these things. And you're not helping her by offering free ultrasounds and free pregnancy tests. Because when abortion is outlawed, women who really want abortions are going to abort. Can I change my mind after taking the abortion pill? Oh, here we go again. The abortion pill process involves taking 2 pills at 2 different times. It is possible for the effects of the abortion pill to be reversed, but only after taking the first pill. Stop it. Stop. However, it is a very time-sensitive medical protocol. Medical protocol? Medical protocol. This is not scientific or medical consensus. So if you or someone you know, oh my god, or someone you know, oh my gosh. Oh, your daughter took the abortion pill? You want to reverse it? Quick, call this number. Has taken the first pill and have changed your mind. Please call us immediately or the 24/7 helpline to speak to nurse right away. Not a nurse, to nurse right away. Imagine if we have a real big Scientology presence in Florida. Imagine if Scientologists, who, if you don't know, hate psychology and psychiatry, imagine if they started opening mental health clinics or mental clinics right next door to actual psychologists, psychiatrists, licensed mental health counselors who do life-saving work. Imagine if they opened up right next door, said they offer free mental health screenings, gave out their little personality test that Scientologists do, and gave out literature with inaccurate mental health information that is cherry-picked and not scientific consensus. And imagine if they got taxpayer dollars to do this. If you don't want Scientology getting taxpayer dollars to lie to people about their health, why is it okay for Catholics and Christians to do the same to pregnant people about their health? So that was a thing that I did. Sorry about that rant at the end about comparing Scientology, but I feel like it holds up. So I want to talk a little bit about what I wish CPCs would do instead, because I have this huge issue with them of giving misleading and medically inaccurate information and basically trying to compete with the abortion industry, in the words of Abby Johnson. And I have a problem with that because I think that lying to women is unethical. But I don't think that CPCs are all bad in their entirety. I mean, I think that they need to switch their objective to simply helping women who want to stay pregnant rather than trying to change women's minds who have decided that they do not want to be pregnant. I think the offering of baby clothes and maternity clothes and pregnancy classes and parenting classes, free items like strollers, referrals to community resources, which I personally know how important those are. Resources in my community have been vital after I gave birth to my last child, and even actually before I gave birth to him, I enrolled in a particular community resource through the county that I live in, and they paid for me to have a counselor sent to my home. And if you don't know me, I get very depressed during pregnancy, scary depressed. So I'm never getting pregnant again, but community resources were vital for me during and after my pregnancy, and I'm actually still enrolled in one, well, my son is, because he is speech delayed, and we have someone come to our house and play with him for an hour once a month, and she goes over other resources that are available to us through that program. Community resources are vital, and I think that if CPCs were to focus on that, they could do a lot more good than they do harm, because right now they do a lot of harm. I also have a huge problem with the funding of these places. I think that the separation of church and state has just been completely trampled on here, and I'm not going to go and hash over again the whole SSP, FPCN thing, because I have just shouted that until I'm blue in the face, but I think that that's problematic. I'm sure you understand why at this point, and I think that they should be completely non-religious if they are getting state funding. If they are not getting state funding, be religious out the wazoo. I mean, do you. And then the last thing that I think that goes right along with that is their advertisement. I don't think that they should be allowed to advertise as if they are medical. I don't think that they should be able to use the word clinic. I don't think that they should do anything that sounds like they are outside of their scope, which is non-medical pregnancy assistance. That's basically it. I mean, I feel like that should all go without saying, but there's all these loopholes and politicians making these bills where they give them permanent funding And then there ends up being absolutely zero oversight of these places. And I end up having to be the one to find out about this crap and then report it to the Department of Health, and who knows if that does anything. And I worry for teens who don't know about these places, and I worry for pregnant people who already have kids who don't know about these places and who are going to walk in and get judgment for wanting to know things. They're going to be lied to. It's worrisome, and I don't want to fund it. I have a huge moral opposition to giving any money to these kinds of places, as long as they're doing things that they're currently doing. But if they were to change that, then I think that they could be just another valuable community resource. Let's talk about why abortion should be legal. What a fun conversation. The most pertinent thing here is that outlawing abortion does not lower abortion rates. According to the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, when abortion access is restricted, women's health suffers. Abortion access is increasingly limited. Research shows that restrictions dictate whether or not care is safely obtained, meaning that if there is a restriction, then unsafe care is going to be obtained, because anybody who wants an abortion, who feels that they don't have the ability to a pregnancy and a child, is going to obtain an abortion. That is statistically accurate. Here is a quote from the World Health Organization on this matter. Outlawing does not reduce rates. It just leaves pregnant people feeling like they have to resort to unsafe abortion. That's why we saw that rise in internet searches for how to have an abortion or how to have a miscarriage. This leads to yearly injury of millions of pregnant persons and the deaths of thousands of them, according to data from the World Health Organization. A study done by the Texas Policy Evaluation Project found that Texas law aimed at restricting abortions, which took effect in 2013, has led to more women in the state trying to end pregnancies on their own. This is a public health crisis. The study estimated that between 100,000 and 240,000 women aged 18 to 49 in Texas have tried self-induced abortions since the law went into effect, using things like herbs, teas, and medicines obtained without a prescription. And this is not a new thing. We saw this in 1967 in another country, Romania. Back then, under communist rule where they wanted people to have a whole bunch of kids, abortion was severely restricted. As a last resort, many Romanian women turned to home and back alley abortions, and as a result, an estimated 10,000 women had died from such procedures. Maternal mortality skyrocketed, doubling between 1965 and 1989. Anti-abortion advocates typically want to use two things to get rid of abortion, which are legislative bans and abstinence education. Both of these things are statistically proven to not have the results that they're looking for. Teaching abstinence only does not lower unwanted pregnancy rates. And again, outlawing abortion does not lower abortion rates. The abortions that they're trying to avoid and trying to prevent from happening will still happen. And on top of them, many women will be injured and many women will die. So what has been proven to work? How can anti-abortion advocates see lower unwanted pregnancy rates and lower abortion rates? By advocating for what's been statistically proven to lower unwanted pregnancy rates. This is two things: science-based, comprehensive sex education, which can include abstinence, but also needs to include things like birth control, how to use condoms, consent, and other such things. And the second is free or low-cost birth control. Funding CPCs and teaching abstinence and voting for pro-life candidates who enact these pro-life legislations that restrict access to abortion is not going to lower the abortion rates. It's not going to get rid of abortion. If you want that, you need to advocate for sex ed and birth control. So call your legislator. So my answer, why should abortion be legal? Safe abortion should be legal and easily accessible, because without it, pregnant people are going to die. So this is the end of this video. I am never taking on a huge project like this again. I'm glad I did it because I feel like if this even helps one person, and I'm hoping it will, then it was all worth it. This has taken hours of my time and probably hours off my life. It's also made me a little I cringe at living in the state of Florida even more so now than I did previously. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope that you learned something about abortion law, or I hope that you learned that Unpregnant is the fucking worst and you shouldn't read it. I hope you learned that if you are considering an abortion, you might want to go to a different state other than Florida. Then again, I feel like I created an entire list of places not to go. This video is the first in a new series of videos that I'm going to be doing, where I'm going to be talking about books that feature reproductive rights themes. I'm never doing a video of this size again. I'm hoping that I'm going to be doing interviews and vlogs of me going to rallies and, I don't know, different stuff. I'm looking forward to doing it, but I'm hoping it'll be a little bit more upbeat than making this video was. I made a list of people I wanted to thank because I've been talking about this, screaming about this on Twitter, and I just found such a community there that was so uplifting. Oh no, now I'm crying. Damn it. Emotionally unstable. I can't thank you enough if you encouraged me to continue this and to pursue this and do it even when I hit obstacles, just didn't want to, felt overwhelmed by it, found out stuff that made me sad. I just really appreciate you. So by name, the people that I wanted to thank specifically were Michelle from Thor Wants Another Letter, thank you. Brody from Ed2 Brody, thank you. Elise from Elise Reads and Speaks, thank you. Rory from Rory D Reads, thank you. Jashana, thank you. Zach from Zach Tries to Read, thank you. Megan from Mookie Reads, thank you. Amy at Nonfiction Feminist, thank you. And Sierra from Sierra Signature, thank you. And thank you if you've made it to the end of this video. I'm so glad to be done. I'm so glad to be done. You have no idea how glad I am to be done. I don't drink wine, but if I did, I would have gone through a lot of wine during this video. If you've made it to the end of this video, thank you. Thank you for watching this, going on this journey with me. I'm never doing this again. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any recommendations on other books you would like me to read for this new reproductive rights series I'm doing, please leave them down below. And I have made a list already, but I am looking for more because I feel like there's not a lot of books on this. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.
No one knows me, no one ever will. If I don't say something, if I just lie still, would I be a monster, scare them all away? If I let them hear what I have to say, I can't keep quiet. No, I can't keep quiet. No, one woman riot. I can't keep quiet for anyone. No, not anymore.